Welcome to the Perlo Podcast. We talk construction, its people, its challenges, its opportunities. We talk to industry and trade experts, movers and shakers, and people who get buildings built right. Join us, you won't regret it. Welcome to the Perlo Podcast. My name is Elissa Looney. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives with Perlo Construction, and I am here on site today with Kyncade Hardy, Project Superintendent, and Adam Smelley, Project Manager for True Terpenes, which is a tenant improvement out in Hillsboro, Oregon. And I'm excited to learn a little more about it. So, will one of you give us a general overview of what we're working on here?
Yeah, so it's a 20,000 square foot building, existing tilt-up building that we came in, and there was some existing offices in the building. We demoed it all out, cleared out all the space, and then we're adding a mezzanine second level inside. About half of the building is office space with offices and conference rooms. The other half is their manufacturing side with some clean rooms and some warehouse space. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's all interior work like you said. There's different areas of the building that have CRC coating on the flooring for chemicals because they make different chemicals for CBD use, and so they're got about half of the area with that, and some curbs in a hazardous material storage room where we've got a concrete curb in there and spill barriers for chemical storage, and a lot of distillation. There's a lot of HVAC and mechanical on this job, so a lot of ventilation and air movement. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
That's awesome. So there's quite a few components in this project between the office spaces, the mezzanine, and the structure that has to go in for that. And then clean rooms, of course, generally require quite a bit of coordination. Do you know what class the clean rooms are?
They're 100,000. They're not crazy clean. They're just generic clean rooms. They're nothing super fancy. They don't have FFUs and filters everywhere. It's just there's a lot of airflow in them, but they're not a high class clean room.
Got it.
So.
Okay.
One of the unique things that we've done in this is that we've maintained the general office area for that, and then adding a mezzanine up above that to amplify their office space. They're needing quite a bit more office space in there. They're also taking what was an existing just really kind of warehousing area for the previous tenant in there and changing those into their processing rooms and adding a lot of process piping. And with a lot of the mechanical units and stuff that they're doing, there's not enough space up on the roof for that. So we've got a couple of concrete pads on the outside for that, and then there's also a mezzanine that we have in the warehouse area that's also going to maintain and hold some of those mechanical units.
Oh, okay.
Which is awesome, especially building in the winter, since this job's been about a 6-month job through the winter, so we don't have to mess with any structural stuff on the roof. It's all been independent mezzanine in the warehouse, which is awesome.
And one of the insulation, one of the things that this tenant needs is a certain insulation value in this processing area of the building, which only had a certain insulation value from the roof and a little bit of the bad insulation that was in there. So we had to look up front on what we were going to do for options there. One was to re-roof the entire building to get a higher insulation value, or add more insulation to the underside of the roof. Knowing lead material times, knowing the timing of the job in the winter time, it didn't seem feasible to do that. A new roof would be great, but they'd have to re-roof the entire building just to get that R value just for a certain area in there. So we've been working through that. A lot of combination of trades in there. Getting the mezzanine in was a little bit tricky because of the existing office space. We only had certain sized openings that we could get materials in through.
It's a steel structure?
Yeah. Yep, so we cut open the slab all around, added footings, and added, steel mezzanine, 12 feet tall. So.
And was the space unoccupied for all of this work?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Good. Yeah, that makes coordination a little easier, huh?
A lot easier, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the previous tenant in there, due to COVID-19, their work was just so downsized on stuff that they just didn't see the existence of their business in maintaining this facility. So it kind of opened this up for True Terpenes to come in, which was great. Not sure fully why they've picked the Hillsboro area to move into. I think they're in Swan Island right now, but I do know there's a UPS facility right down the street that's helping probably some of their logistics and getting stuff out into their markets that they fill in.
Yeah, maybe a little easier access to freeways and workforce and that kind of thing too. Yeah. And so this was a negotiated project, correct? They came to us and asked us to build this for them?
It was a unique position. I know that in a prior podcast we had talked about negotiated versus hard bid. And Todd Dewey and that had kind of brought in this architect and this client, kind of meshed them together, brought them to us, and our estimating team had started working on just general budgets based off of the initial plans that they had. And I think that we went through about 4 rounds of budgeting on that before we got to a place where it was like, all right, these plans are good enough for us to bid off of. And kind of getting into that hard bid mode of, okay, we're comfortable with that. There's still some unique things that we ran into once we got into the building that weren't evident on the drawings. They were just existing conditions that we've had to manage and deal with. But the client's been great to work with, and just following our path on which is the best route to remedying those situations and making this the right product for them.
That's awesome. And so what was the duration of your pre-construction period?
Our estimating team probably spent 2.5 months or so prior to us actually really bidding this out, with subcontractors bidding on it. And duration of job, we started in November, middle of November or so, and we're shooting to have this thing done, at least this processing area and everything ready for them middle part of April, so that they can start moving the equipment in.
Awesome. So talk to me about where we're at in the process today. We're going to go take a tour here in a few minutes. What are we going to see?
So right now we have in the office space area, the mezzanine is up. They're just finishing drywall upstairs on the mezzanine. They're doing the taping drywall finish downstairs, so kind of phased it where they came in. As soon as we poured that deck, they came in and framed everything underneath, and then just kind of kept the train moving going upstairs. So framing going, and MEP roughing, then drywall right after that. So right now they're mostly just finishing drywall in that whole area. That's that half with the offices. The other half, we are just finishing up the FRP and all the clean rooms. It gets the FRP all the way around the walls just for cleanliness. Easy to keep it clean and wipe it down. So they're just finishing that up. The warehouse is just hanging out right now. There's not a lot, but it's pretty much done. So there's not a whole lot going on out there. So that's the most of it. There's some electrical rough-in going on in the clean room side, the manufacturing side. We ran into some design, I guess you could call them issues. I don't know if it's an issue, but just design wasn't complete on the electrical side, and we kind of found that out a little late in the game, so we're trying to catch that up right now, where they had basic electrical design figured out, but they didn't have it figured out for all the equipment that they're going to have in here. So it's been a going through and figuring out what goes where outlets go, doing box walks with the owner, making sure this is where you want this is where you want that. Especially with FRP, it's like you got to have all those dialed and done, and you don't want to mess with FRP once it's up. So that's where we're at in the clean room area, just getting ready for ceilings to go in there in the next week or so.
And the mezzanine structure, it's a steel structure. Does it have a dripcrete topping slab?
Just concrete slab, 4-inch concrete slab. Yep.
Okay.
Concrete slab, and the owner has decided to make some changes on that. Initially, they were going to have stained concrete. The initial concrete on the main floor was a stained concrete, and they wanted to maintain some of that look, but maybe change the color. So they were going to do that kind of in part of the area, and then also in the mezzanine. It's kind of a U-shaped mezzanine, so the walk path around that was going to have that also. The logistics of that can get tricky, trying to maintain it, keep it right, patch it right. It's concrete. It's one of those difficult things, just like in our own office. But they decided they wanted to stay with the marmoleum flooring in there, which was kind of awesome choice. I mean, they paid up for it, but it was an awesome choice to do that. I think it saves us time overall in the job, and also just the cleanliness of it, because you've got trades working up there, and they've got a lift, and driving that lift on there is going to scratch and chatter on that concrete. So we love concrete as a company, but sometimes you look at those things and go, maybe safer to cover it up if we need to. And I think it's the look that they want overall anyway. I don't think that they're looking so much for that concrete. It was just in a couple of areas. The stairs leading up to the mezzanine are going to have a wood tread on there that I think will look nice. I think the overall look of it, and also they've got a really nice ceiling cloud over that whole open office area, which will look really nice as an end result. Similar to our office with some clouds and different textures and stuff. So I think it'll look nice in the final end.
That's great. So it sounds like it's got some interesting finishes in the space.
Yeah, it'll look really nice. That whole handrail around the mezzanine is all stainless steel cable with a wood top rail that'll match the stair treads, so it'll look pretty sweet when it's all done.
Maybe by the time we publish this podcast, we'll have some finished images we can show so that people can see what the finished product is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we do want to market as far as the finishes and stuff, because sometimes we're just known as a tilt-up company and a warehouse. I think that we've got a great crew of staff that can really kind of work the finishes and make this place look really nice.
Yeah, and one thing we ran into right out of the gate on this project was we had a bunch of added plumbing in the production side that we were putting in, some sinks, added bathrooms, stuff like that. So we were planning on saw cutting up the slab for plumbing trenches tying into the existing plumbing main line that ran through the middle of the building. And our plumber, Heinz Mechanical, is an awesome sub. We worked with them to survey all the underground plumbing before, just to see what the existing conditions were. And we found out that the main line that runs through, that the main trunk line that everything ties into, was bellied and flat and full of water. And so we ended up showing that video to the owner and said, hey, once we tie into this thing, it probably, we're adding a lot more plumbing fixtures, a lot more stuff like that. So it's definitely not recommended to keep that line. So we worked that out and cut open the whole trench all the way down through the middle, pulled out that whole line and replaced it. So added some more. That's another reason, just going back to the floor covering. It was so saw cut up everywhere with electrical floor boxes, plumbing trenches, and they wanted to match all that existing stain. Never would have looked very good. So
Yeah.
it worked out that we're getting it all covered up with flooring. I think it'll look pretty good when it's all done.
Stained concrete is definitely one of those tricky items that we have struggled with in the past because it is a fairly high maintenance floor. And so it might look really good once it's done. We turn the building over and it's great, but it takes a lot of effort to maintain. And so that's one of those things that we really try to make sure people understand. And if they're willing to put that effort in, it can look really great over time, but you have to keep up on it.
And sometimes you need a window to get that work done, but you have to have other things done before then, and then it gets tricky to do that work. We noticed that in our own office, just polishing the concrete on there, that getting up close to the walls is difficult, and getting that final product looking nice and staying nice is a very tricky feat in itself.
Yep. Not that it can't be done.
No.
Just takes a lot of coordination and a knowledge that you've got to maintain it over time.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we've had some struggles, but overall we're staying on schedule. We've been able to work through all of those things. Always helps when you've got a great client on board that can help make decisions, work through those. So should we go take a tour?
Yeah.
Let's go take a look.
Let's do it. Yeah, this is it. This is the main office area. When we got here, you can kind of see this wall with the old paint. That was an existing wall right here, and everything else basically from here is all brand new. There was a wall that went all the way down this side and that side that we demoed everything out. Opened it all up, added this mezzanine, office space upstairs.
And the existing walls that were in here over on this side were full height that went all the way up around there, kind of just keeping the office. It was all just one level. So when we went to the second level on that, we've opened that up and have added that mezzanine over the existing offices on the outside walls.
Okay.
So basically they're doubling their office space upstairs by having that mezzanine up there. They're gonna have a sensory room up there. There's 2 conference rooms, and I think about half a dozen offices and some open office spaces upstairs also.
And so they must be leaving the ceiling exposed because I see it's painted black.
Yep, so we just went and painted all this ductwork is all brand new, so it was all shiny metal, gray metal. So we came through and painted it all flat black because it gets that cloud ceiling that's hanging there, but you'll see through it. So we painted everything in the background black.
Yeah, there's like 3 levels of the clouds that are in there. So you'll all see clouds in there, and they're square formations, what, 12 by 12?
Yeah, and 4 by 4, just little ones and big ones. So that's what all these marks are on the floor. We just laid them all out on the floor, and each color represents a different level of cloud. So it's a pretty complicated system, and it hangs over the mezzanine over there and hangs over the mezzanine on that side. So they just finished laying it all out, getting ready to start putting it up, all the bracing up for it. So.
Interesting. So you're laying it out on the floor just for visual purposes, or does that help with the coordination for installation
More
too?
just to coordinate too, to make sure we're not running, because all this ductwork diffusers, everything hanging down has to fit between the clouds, making sure the lights are in the right spot. We've already hung all the light wires. We've got the sprinklers roughed in. So it's just easier for them to lay it all out on the ground and measure everything out where it's supposed to go, and then all it is just a laser straight up to where you need to put it, and you just kind of work through it like that.
I see. And so what's your order going to be in terms of lights, sprinklers, clouds?
So it'll go in, they do all the bracing and seismic first. They have compression posts that go up. There's a couple of those with each cloud. They got some wires that they hang off of that. It's basically just a floating grid ceiling. So they'll put in the grid part, get the grid there, then sprinkler guy will get in there, put his drops in the cloud before all the tiles are in so he can reach in there and get them in. And then they'll come through and start dropping the tiles. And as they drop a tile where the lights go, they'll have to drill a little hole in the tile, fish that wire through the tile where it's just coming straight through. And then once the cloud is in, then they'll do the lights last from underneath. So.
Okay. A lot of coordination in a pretty small
a lot
space.
Of coordination, yep, for that ceiling for sure.
Okay.
And just a recent change that we had on that, because some of the ductwork was in there, the architect had laid everything out. We realized that some of the ductwork was going to impact some of that. And so we had to come up with a quick decision on that just recently and drop that whole ceiling cloud structure down 8 inches from where it originally was going to start at, just to keep out of the way of the ductwork.
Got it.
Just one of those last minute things you got to change.
Did they utilize BIM technology on this one?
So Arctic Sheet Metal, they're a mechanical sub. They used their own BIM, but it was not a fully coordinated with all the different subs. There wasn't quite enough. We've had a couple conflicts with sprinklers and ductwork, but they were small enough where they just moved their pipe over, and it's not packed enough to justify BIM, but Arctic uses it on most of their jobs, so they just scanned it and did it anyways for their own sake, but they're the only sub that used it.
Okay.
So. So walking into the clean room, each doorway going in has a vestibule called an airlock where you can come in. These doors are coordinated where they won't be open at the same time. So you come in here where you can, I don't know if they do a full gown up or what they do exactly, but you come in here and then you don't have outside air from the dirty warehouse getting into their clean room. So you come in here, change, put on your hairnet, whatever it is, and then you can walk in here to the clean room. So I think there's three different entrances into the clean room. They all have that same airlock.
And this is the FRP.
Yep.
Yes.
So they've got a real smooth FRP.
Yep. Smooth FRP in here, and then all the way in here in the production area as well.
And they did real tall sheets too. What are those, 12 feet?
Yep. Well, it's 10 feet. Yep. 10 feet. As long as I can dunk on top of that, then it's 10 feet.
Okay. I want to see that.
All right. Elissa, you can see in here lots of ductwork coming in from all the different units and stuff in here and in the different areas in here. They've got a lot of process piping that comes in through here also. They've got nitrogen, oxygen. I think they've even got some helium coming in. I haven't even kept track of all the gases and stuff that they've got coming in here. But it's all small valve stuff. It's not heavy loads of it. They've got a distillation room and a hazmat room in here too. But they're not huge because they don't have big quantities of this stuff. I think they're producing smaller bottles of product. But I think that they still have a lot of volume of stuff coming in here.
Okay, and so we've got this prepped for the ceiling tile.
Yep.
Yes.
With our wires. The sprinkler drops are down. The ductwork's ready to go. So this is essentially a roughed in state.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Just getting ready for grid. Once we get that grid in, then we can drop in all the light fixtures, hook up all the diffusers to the ductwork, and get all that going. So, yeah, we're just past the MEP rough-in stage now, just getting ready for ceilings.
Okay. Have the inspections been done for all of this?
Yes. Yep.
Getting down to the finishes.
Yep, exactly. Getting the finishes. And then this in here too you'll see like over on the wall where we've kept the FRP up 4 inches. Mm-hmm. So this will get an epoxy CRC coated floor. So chemical resistant coating on the floor. So it'll go up and do a cove base up the wall. So if there's any spill in here or anything, it won't eat into the concrete. It'll have that protective coating on over the slab.
What do you do at the transitions to those airlock rooms?
So the airlock gets the same coating all the way through. Where it goes to the hallway, there'll just be like a little transition strip right there. Because it's not very thick, it's really thin. It's not, I don't know, full thickness, probably 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 maybe total.
Okay. And tell me about these brackets that are hanging on the walls. What are those for?
Those are for all the process piping. So the mechanical room's over there. It'll come through the wall. It'll all be stainless steel piping. So like Adam was saying, the nitrogen, helium, those will be run along those brackets, that unistrut bracket that'll run all the way across the wall, over and down.
All around the perimeter, looks like.
Something else that's unique that we've run into in our hazmat room, sometimes you have to deal with chemical spills and stuff like that, and do you have a big bucket that stuff's going to go into? The architect on this decided to do a spill barrier, nothing that I'd ever run across before, and it just sits in front of the doorway. We've got a curb that goes all the way around the room. I think we can go in there and check that out. Do you have the spill barrier in that we can take a look at now?
Yep.
All right.
It's not poured in, but we're getting it installed right now.
We do have kind of some unique door opening situations in here. We've got stainless steel frames and doors. We've got hollow metal doors and frames. We've got an alpha aluminum frame with wood doors in the office area. So we've kind of got some unique combinations of stuff here, and kind of a grab bag of hardware too, and quite a bit of access control like we've talked about walking out these rooms out here. One section of doors can open, but it can't open until another set's closed on there. So there's some access control kind of components that we're trying to integrate in this.
I actually do think that doors and hardware are a little known complexity on projects. They can take a lot of coordination, and depending on the type of frame that it is, you might have to have it in before your wall finishes go on. Maybe they go in after. And that can get pretty complex.
Just from my prior experience on stainless steel frames, I knew those were going to be a super long lead time, so I started talking to subs up front. What can we do to expedite these things? Because most stainless steel frames come out of the East Coast, and they can take sometimes 14 to 20 weeks. And I said, we've got to narrow that down. I was even calling manufacturers and saying, what can you do to get us something fast? And fortunately, our supplier on there was able to deliver. We paid them a premium for it, but we got them here in time.
Yeah, those can certainly be a schedule problem if you're not on top of your doors.
Just on top of the other logistics of long lead times for everything else these days, and delays of material and equipment. It's just one of the things you got to run into.
Not to mention with your wood doors, if you're trying to match an existing stain, and then you got to deal with that.
We eliminated that by, I think there were 3 or 4 doors that they were going to keep as existing, and it didn't make sense to. And I said, we're just going to do new doors here. Yep. Easy way to work through it.
All right, let's go look at that room.
So Elissa, this is a kind of a new thing that I've never come across before, but I've never even really worked with a containment type room. But what we have here is a room that's got a concrete curb all the way around the perimeter of it, so that if anything spills in here, it's not going to go up against the walls, it's not going to get out into other areas. But then what do we do when we have a door opening? Architect had found a company that makes a spill barrier that's not gravity activated. I guess you could say that it's gravity activated. It's not. There's no power or anything to it. It's just a manual thing that when something does get in here and on the floor, it activates this, and there's a door that comes up and basically just blocks off right here at this curb and blocks off this door. So you're not going to have anything running out in here into your hallway.
Okay. So it becomes your curb continuation.
Like a float valve, so these grates in the corner, the fluid will flow in there, and then it pushes this thing up, and it's called a pop-up barrier. It'll just pop up once the fluids get in there. So
interesting. So this is sunken down so that it's level with the rest of the floor.
Exactly. Then they can roll pallet jacks or whatever they need to in here.
Yeah, that's I haven't seen that before.
And once we get this thing fully installed and the concrete poured back around it, we'll probably get some video of it just to show other clients and stuff, something that we've come across that we've never been exposed to before.
Yeah, it certainly would avoid, I think in past containment rooms, what I've done is they'll have a ramp in and a ramp down so that they can get in and out. But you've got some space constraints here. That's not going to be very feasible.
Correct. You've got that, and then you've also got the impact that they need to be bringing in barrels of stuff in here and having to go up a ramp and then down a ramp and then also put something up on a pallet or something that's up off the floor. It just seemed to make more sense to do it this way with the containment curb around there and the spill barrier. Hopefully this thing never has to come up.
Right. That's the goal.
Yep.
Very good. And so tell me about your temporary protection. I like seeing this. Talk to me about this.
So that's just roofing felt that we put between the concrete and the drywall. So we drywalled the room first, and then we just put that up. That's just any moisture in the concrete's not going to get through and affect the drywall at all. So we just ran it high just to protect when we were pouring that curb, so any concrete splatter wouldn't get on the finished wall. So
the concrete went in after you sheetrocked the room?
Yep, painted it and then put the concrete in after that. So then we'll cut that off with the top of the curb, and then they're going to do the CRC coating in this room too. They'll run up that wall and up the top, do that epoxy coating all over the concrete.
Okay, got it. Now, is there, we got temporary lighting everywhere. Is the power off to this building? No, or do we just not have light fixtures?
It just doesn't have fixtures yet. So, I mean, we have power in the electrical room that's just fed through some temp power spider boxes for all the lighting. We've got a couple temp light tower, LED towers for the big areas, and then just little wobble lights in the smaller areas. So, yeah, we kept the existing lights up as long as we could because it was just so easy to keep all that for the temp lighting. You could see a lot better, but we just took them out a couple weeks ago.
This is where they do a lot of their shipping and receiving of materials. And if we look up here at the ceiling, this is one of the main areas that we did put that insulation in there at the ceiling just to get that increased insulation value. Just on the underside, that matched up with the roofing insulation meets their insulation values that they need. And they've kind of got a long, narrow path here. They're gonna have racking up along this wall. And then they will have some forklifts going up and down through here, just kind of handling materials and moving stuff in and out.
Okay, so they went with stick pin insulation then at the end of the day, and then added the plywood really just for protection, because that's pretty easy to pierce.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And that'll have racking. I think the racking is maybe at 12 feet tall. I'm not exactly sure where it's at on that, but we have picked up the racking for them on that. And that'll stick out, 3 feet or so off the wall. I think that's for inventory of materials they have coming in, and also product inventory of stuff, if it hasn't shipped out yet.
Awesome. And then this looks like a brand new demising wall.
Yes.
Is that right?
Brand new.
Talk to me about this little detail right here, because I think this is kind of a little known fact, is that when you've got these big long walls, you actually want a joint in your drywall.
Yep. So those are control joints. Typically you want to put them every 30 feet on a long wall. So buildings move, they expand and contract and settle or whatever. So it's good to have those every 30 feet where if the drywall wants to shift a little bit, it'll give it somewhere to crack. It's the same concept as cuts in your slab. So that's what they're for. So you don't see cracks in the drywall, it'll move a little bit without cracking the drywall.
Well, this has been a really cool project. I really appreciate your guys' time to bring us out here, let us see kind of the real thing. This is a project in action. Yep. Maybe 2/3 of the way done, getting close, and some really neat and unique features in here.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great product at the end, and I think True Terpenes is gonna be really happy with it.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for bringing the podcast out to the job site.
You bet.
Thank you for joining us for the Perlo Podcast. Visit us online at perlo.biz. Subscribe to catch our future episodes, and join us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube to discuss all things construction. And finally, work hard, do what's right, and make it fun. Until next time.